On today, we unveil another game based on the Quake 2 engine.
Kimberly, come in. Are you okay? We got the power.
You're now listening to Retro Gaming Radio. Welcome to Retro Gaming Radio, your comprehensive online source of everything classic gaming, from consoles to computers, from arcades to video games. I'm Shane Armonroe, your host. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the new Retro Gaming Radio. A lot of people have asked already why the change from Retro Radio to Retro Gaming Radio after spending such a long time making Retro Radio a sort of the name that it is. And I'd just like to give you a couple of insights as to why I chose to do this. Quite simply, Retro Radio has needed a new direction for a long time. Not a new direction as in a mass changeover in content, but more of a new retrospective look at gaming. Now, Retro Radio kind of started off as a straight emulation show, which was cool. I mean, it did pretty well. But I kind of wanted to diversify a little bit and start talking about old computer games, and that's when the 8-bit flashback kind of got introduced. And then from there, I tried to start covering a little bit more arcade stuff, and at one time I even tried to cover gaming or movies of the 80s as part of the retro reel. But again, when you stop concentrating on one thing and kind of diversify, why it sort of takes away from everything else. So it got to the point to where I wanted to take it away from emulation directly and make Retro Radio, now Retro Gaming Radio, about gaming. When I talk about gaming, I'm talking about not only emulation, but the actual arcade games. You know, a lot of people have written to me and said, you know, I love it when you talk about the real games and people who restore them and your stories about your arcade machines. So people obviously want to hear content about real arcade. I also want to talk about retro gaming, since it seems to be getting very popular on the consoles. I'd like to give you my take on that, as I now have a PlayStation. I could tell you a little bit about the Namco museums and how they kind of stack up to the main emulation. In fact, this show we're going to talk about PacMan World, the 20th anniversary from Namco, which is really cool. We're going to talk about that too. But it's important for everyone to understand that I want to take this show in a very broad retro gaming direction. I'm going to talk about all sorts of stuff now. Yes, there will continue to be rants. There will continue to be focus on emulation, but there's also going to be focus on other elements of retro gaming, including consoles and computers and, of course, the arcade itself. And I'd like to start giving more insight to arcade restoration, people who are out collecting cabs, how to collect cabs, who to talk to, how to get the best deals. We did do a collecting arcade games feature some time ago, early last year, but I'd like to get into something a little more in depth. We have a lot of folks here in Phoenix that are big game collectors and game restorers, so hopefully maybe I can have one of them on the show and they can talk to you about it. This episode, we've got a bunch of things to cover. We're going to talk about the CustomArcade controller that I finally got sent a prototype of. So we're not going to give a full review, but we're going to give you a little intro to it until we get something other than a prototype version, because it's really not fair to review the product when it's not quite done. We're going to talk about the PacMan World 20th anniversary video game for the PlayStation, and I'm assuming that a PC version is forthcoming sometime. We'll talk about that. Mainly, a lot of this episode, we're going to talk about the Classic Gaming Gauntlet, which is the gaming contest. A lot of you on the Monroe World mailing list have already gotten news about it, have already visited the site, and are eagerly awaiting the means to sign up. We're going to talk about the Classic Gaming Gauntlet, where it's at in terms of being ready to go, and also how you can get in, how to win, and what kind of prizes you can expect. We're going to update a little bit with MAME and some of the other emulators, just a short segment of the show. I'm going to tell you about some new products and stuff that are coming out that may be of interest to you, and a bunch of other stuff. So let's get to it. Let's start off the show here with the CustomArcade controller. Now, these guys are fairly new to the scene. As you know, there's been a rash outbreak of arcade controllers A lot of you have heard of Hot Rod, of course. You've heard me plug a lot about the Stick-It, which is my current controller of choice. And I'll let you know why CustomArcade is not just yet. And there's the V-Stick, which I'm assuming is still out there somewhere. I haven't actually heard from the guy. The Zip Stick, which we're going to have a review of later on. And it seems like everybody's getting into the PC arcade controller arena. And CustomArcade is a new entry, and their goal is to provide you with something that none of the other controllers out there can offer you, and that's interchangeability. Because everybody knows there's not just one set of controls for everything. Frankly, there's a lot of games that you can't use a joystick on. Centipede, Marble Madness, Missile Command. These are all native trackball games, and you will not ever want to play any of these games with anything but a trackball. Well, a mouse is a pretty good substitute. There is no real substitute for having a real mouse, for a real trackball. So there's other games too, which I'm not going to get into great details, but they will be having panels. And this is the nice thing about the construction of this thing, that you can just lift off this panel, the top part of the panel where the controls are, and drop another panel right into place with, say, a Tron controller, with a spinner, the trackball, and there's some other goodies coming, but I can't really reveal all of that right now because I'm not sure what I should and shouldn't say about it. But suffice to say, the top of the controller is Velcro, and you lift the top off and you pop the new one on, plug it in, and you're good to go. So it's pretty nice. The actual physical construction, now what I have is what we call a Panel 2, which incidentally is being given away in the Classic Gaming Gauntlet, which consists of a number of control devices and buttons. Just to give you a quick idea, if you go over to contest.monroeworld.com, and I'm going to pass a picture across here too, you can get a link over to the CustomArcade control site, and you'll see that this is a lot bigger than most of the controls that are out there. Reason being is there's a lot more stuff on it. You have each player, let's say we cut this puppy in half, each player has a set of controls consisting of a button, assuming it's going to be a coin-up button for most people, an 8-way, standard 8-way HAPS joystick with 6 buttons, plus what they call the tulip control, which is an 8-wayer with a fire button on the top. And I'll let you know what that was originally intended for here in a minute. Plus you have the standard player start button, player 1 on one side, player 2 on the other. So both of you have this full set of controls, plus right smack in the middle, you have a 4-way joystick right there in the middle. For those of you PacMan freaks that can't play with an 8-way, this is how you do it. In addition, there's 2 pinball-type flipper buttons on each side, one on each side of the controller, plus one in the front, which that could also be your coin up or escape or whatever you wanted to program it to. So this is a pretty big guy. It's actually kind of hard to get a picture between it, say, and the Stick-It, but it's a good size. The nice thing is it's very solid construction. It doesn't feel flimsy. It's a lot like the Stick-It and the Hot Rod. You're not going to have to worry about, feeling like you've got a cheap piece of plastic between your legs. This is quality construction. Again, the size is a little daunting, so you better have a good amount of table space. Although the folks over at CustomArcade are talking about creating a special stand to put this on. So you can actually put it somewhere where it's out of the way, not interfering with your keyboard or mouse, where you can still work with it. Now, the internals and whatnot inside of the CustomArcade controller are not in its final stages, so I can't really comment about that. One thing I would like to comment on is how this is meant to be programmed. Now, with the Stick-It, as you know, there was a switch where you flip it into program mode, push a button on the keyboard, flip the switch again, and the key's programmed. Now, it works a little bit different. Yes, the CustomArcade controller does indeed plug into your keyboard with a pass-through. So again, you can assign it any key you want, or sequence of keys. There are even delay factors you can set, and everything else. I mean, it's very complex in the way it's programmed. The encoder inside does a great job. Now, the one thing that you will find differently, you're probably asking yourself, well, how do you program the thing if there's no switch? How do you do it? At the current time, it's through a DOS level, sort of an INI file. Basically, you go in and you type in what key does what, and then you basically use a loader file to load it into the controller. Now, before you freak out and say, oh my God, that's a little bit complicated, especially for the average end user, rest assured, actually right now, Ron Corcoran from over at SniperCade, Sniper75, he's working on a front end to help you work without basically having to go into a text file and edit the changes yourself, having a full visual key map. Now, in order to program it through Windows, because of the nature of the controller, you will have to use a serial cable, much like you would a UPS. The uninterrupted power supply has a serial cable that gives you conditions of the power supply and lets you make changes. It's the same idea. And you get this stuff included with the controller. So you'll be able to, from a Windows interface, actually program the controller from within anywhere and just control and go. Boom, boom, boom. So you'll be basically downloading profiles or, building them yourselves for your popular games and emulators. Now, what I'm hoping, and this will probably actually come about, is having emulators support the stick natively. So if we can tell, say, Arcade at Home, say, here's a DLL that you can plug into Arcade at Home that will allow you to program, say, Battlezone, which would be great for the two Tulip tops, the Tulip controllers with the fire buttons on top. You can use the Tulip controllers for Battlezone, and it configures on the fly before the game even starts. And I have a feeling that that is the natural progression this controller will come to, which is perfect. I think everybody will be really happy with that. Right now, it's in its raw stages. So how does it compare to other controllers? At this point in time, I hesitate to really go into detail. It's really not fair to compare a shipping version of, say, the Stick-It or the Hot Rod with the prototype CustomArcade controller. It's not exactly fair. Once I do get a finalized version of the CustomArcade controller, you can bet we'll do a full-blown Hot Rod versus Stick-It versus CustomArcade, and we'll be good to go. Let's move along. Time just running right by. Let's talk for a minute about the PacMan World 20th anniversary game. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, geez, just only need another Pac-Man game. Well, this one's a little different. First of all, what we're talking about for the purposes of this show is the PlayStation version. It comes on a single CD, of course, and it is from Namco. The game itself is actually a cluster of three separate types of games. One is the classic mode, which is your standard emulation style version of Pac-Man. The next one is what they call mazes, which is sort of an isometric, three-dimensional sort of Pac-Mania view, all done in 3D, of different mazes that have the standard ghosts, the standard dots, standard power, the power pellets. But there's a lot of different themes, and we're going to get more into the mazes in a minute. Then they have what's known as Quest mode, which is probably what most people will end up playing in PacMan World. Let's start off with the easiest of all, the classic mode. This is the part of the package that I am the most discontent about. In fact, I'm going to go into rant mode because it's perfectly unacceptable for PacMan World's 20th to have such a poor classic Pac-Man mode. Now, follow me with this one. First of all, it's very obviously a simulation. It is not an emulation of the original Pac-Man. I guarantee that they did not use the original Pac-Man ROMs to make this, which is funny because it's Namco. I mean, they own Pac-Man. They should be able to have done this the right way. They do some sort of a simulated-looking power-up, which if anybody who's played MAME, 2 or 3 times played Pac-Man knows it's not right. It doesn't look accurate. The controls are very sluggish. The sound effects are even off. The ghosts don't look right. I mean, there's almost nothing about the classic mode game of PacMan World that even remotely, play MAME. That's all I'm going to tell you. If you got a PlayStation, you got a PC, play the MAME version of Pac-Man because you're going to be very disappointed with the classic mode. Now, I have not looked at the Namco Museum number 1, which supposedly has Pac-Man on it. I'm only hoping that it's not as bad as this PacMan World classic mode was. Now let's look at the mazes. The mazes portion is really cool. There's probably, just off the top of my head, about 8 different themes that you'll play within the mazes. And again, like I said, it's pretty much Pac-Man, but it's all sort of three-dimensionalized. You can't jump over the ghost like you could in Pac-Mania. It's basically Pac-Man from a 3D point of view. Now, some of the nice features of it are you have 3 different views that you can look at. You can do the right up in Pac-Man's, right up looking close at Pac-Man, which means you can't see anything, but you get a good look at the graphics and whatnot. You have the middle view, which gives you a pretty decent surrounding area view. This is the view you'll probably play at most of the time. And then you've got the full maze view, which you'll find yourself hopping up just to get a good evaluation as to where the bad guys are. Overall, it's very enjoyable. Folks that are really into the classic game will not be playing the classic mode. They'll be playing the mazes version. Now, one thing that's really cool that I've seen in the mazes so far is there are night episodes where you're playing at night, and the only light halos around you. You can see the power pellets, and the ghosts are sort of there, but very translucent, but you can only really see the maze around you. It's a really neat effect, and they did a good job with that. And that kind of made the mazes a little more fun to play. Now, into the quest mode, I'm going to get into not too much detail because this isn't a PlayStation show, but suffice to say it's your basic horizontal type scroller with the depth, basically a Z depth that you can bring the Pac-Man close to the screen and deep into the screen. And again, there are various types of environments that you'll play in. It's really nice. It's your standard find a fruit to open a door. You open the door, you find a switch, you hit the switch, it opens up a door which opens up to another switch. Sometimes you'll go underwater. There's underwater portions of it where you can actually swim underneath and avoid coral and find goodies that are underneath the ground, underneath the water. And a lot of times you'll find fruit that'll help you open up another door. There's a lot of nice little bonuses in there, like occasionally when there's ghosts around, there's probably a switch that you can hit, which will make dots appear, which will make your pellets appear that you can go actually eat just like regular Pac-Man. And then you can get a power-up, which will let you eat any ghosts that are in the vicinity. There's also treasure chests to break open. In fact, there's underwater treasure chests that you get this little suit of armor on. It's really kind of cool. You get the suit of armor on, then when you fall into the water, you'll sink and break any chests that are in your way. Tons of different obstacles. There's like little trampolines you can get on that bounce you all over the place. Sometimes there's even hidden pellets which will pull you across half the level. It's really neat. There's a lot of different flavors in it. There's a full-blown tutorial. In fact, the first level you play is a tutorial. And as you walk around, you'll get hints that'll tell you, okay, if you want to do the bouncing on your butt bit, then you do this. If you want to run really fast so you can roll up the side of a hill, here's how you do it. There's just tons of stuff. The replay value is supreme. You will continue to come back and play it more. It's very, very addictive. The age group was probably tailored more towards the younger crowd, but the die-hard 3D type action-adventure fans are really going to get a kick out of this game. It does allow you to periodically save your game, which is nice, because you will need it. Even the die-hard fans will probably get dead at least once or twice. In between levels, you get a chance to play which level you want to. You don't get a lot of knowledge about what level it is, but some of them are rocket ships. You assume it takes you to another area. Very nice. Now, one thing that I've really got to comment on that Namco deserves a big pat on the back for is the music. The music in PacMan World is just brilliant. Very nice. In fact, it should be MP3. I imagine it's probably MP3 and passed around the net by now. But that's one really good aspect. There's a lot of full motion video between levels and worlds and whatnot, and you'll see a lot of that. But it's the music that really, really sticks in your head. You find yourself humming the music when you're in the shower or go to work. But PacMan World's a worthy addition to anybody's PlayStation collection. I imagine it's going to be out for the PC. I can tell you, however, that the Pac-Man 20th does play quite well on the PC PlayStation emulators that I've tried it on, including PSMU and Bleen. Seems to work out pretty well. So those of you bereft of having a PlayStation, well, you can use your PC and your favorite PlayStation emulator. But it seems like one of those sort of games that will eventually make it over to the PC. That, once again, is Namco's PacMan World 20th Anniversary Edition. We got some more stuff to talk about, so let's move on. Part of the show that a lot of people have been waiting for is more information on the Classic Gaming Gauntlet. Now, what the Classic Gaming Gauntlet is my attempt to spur some interest in classic gaming by a more modern generation by competing, well, not really even competing, it's more like participating in several legs of this gauntlet qualifies you for a drawing of one of our prizes. The legs are actually fairly simple. I mean, you're not going to have to run any marathons or play Space Invaders nonstop for 3 days. It's sort of fashioned so that the common Joe guy can actually have a chance at winning some of the prizes. You know, you don't have to be a pinball wizard or anything like that. Basically, you'll have 6 legs to complete, each one corresponding with one of our sponsors. And we have a lot of good sponsors, but we're going to get to that pretty soon. You'll complete the leg, and this is all done automatically, folks. You don't have to do this through email or anything like that. It's all automated on the site. You can play when you want. You can complete your legs when you want. You can actually get qualified when you want. It's not a matter of when or where. You're good to go. Basically, all you have to do is go over to the site, contest.monroeworld.com. That'll give you the whole scrub. You'll also be able to enter, and you'll get issued a unique ID number, and you'll set a password. Now, your password, along with your ID number, will get you into each leg. And again, once the contest starts, which will actually begin on the 21st of December, so you have a lot of days left to sign up, it'll run through the 4th, giving everybody lots of time to get done with Christmas and have everything out of the way, and then be able to participate. You can do this in a night, folks. I mean, it's not that difficult. It's more of an exposure tool and trying to get people interested in classic gaming versus seeing who's the best at Pac-Man. The actual prize drawing will be held on the 15th of January, and the sponsors are actually shipping the prizes to the winners. They don't have to go through me. So what are the prizes? Well, the grand prize is the new Panel 2 CustomArcade controller. The PC controller we were just talking about on the show will go to a lucky winner of the Classic Gaming Gauntlet. It's like a $300 value, folks. It's a great thing, and somebody will win it who plays in the gauntlet that completes it. Also, the good folks over at the Stick-It Controller has donated one of their Stick-It controllers. $150 value, fantastic stick. I use it myself. One lucky winner will walk away with that. I've also got tons of follow-up prizes too. Digital Leisure, the folks who brought us Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, Dragon's Lair 2, and a bunch of other goodies back to the PC. They're going to be donating a prize of your choice, be it a Dragon's Lair Deluxe CD-ROM package, which has Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, and Dragon's Lair 2 for Windows 95, 98. I think it'll actually run on NT, too, for that matters. Fully redone. It's not that old freaky DOS version that you could never get to run. It's a real deal, runs in a window, et cetera, et cetera. You get your choice of that, a Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, or Dragon's Lair 2 DVD for either your PC or your set-top box. They got a set-top version, as most of you already know. So you get your choice of one of those prizes from Digital Leisure if you are the drawer of that particular drawing. There's also Buckner and Garcia, the good folks that have brought us the Pac-Man Fever soundtrack and have done a remake of that. Good folks have always been very supportive of us getting to play their tunes here on the show and during our live shows. They're donating two winners will receive a Buckner and Garcia Pac-Man Fever autographed version of their CD, Pac-Man Fever. Great deal. We're also going to be giving away an Intellivision prize pack. The Intellivision Lives folks, the good folks that have brought Intellivision to the PlayStation and the PC, they are going to donate a prize pack, including their Intellivision Lives CD-ROM and some sort of a prize goodie pack they're putting together, like with a T-shirt and a hat or a coffee mug, something like that. It's a real good basket of goodies. And then there will, of course, be a couple of runner-up folks that will receive complimentary Retro Gaming Radio CD-ROMs. So there's a lot of ways to win. There's a lot of folks that are going to win. And we're still waiting to hear back from Blue Byte Software. They're the ones who, in conjunction with Don Bluth and Rick Dyer, are going to be bringing us Dragon's Lair 3D, sort of a Dragon's Lair meets Tomb Raider thing, coming around next year. We're trying to see if they'll secure us with some sort of a prize, too, but I'm not putting any putting any promises down on that one because I haven't heard back and it's been a while. But that's what the Classic Gaming Gauntlet's all about, and that's going to be really exciting. We've already got 40 people signed up, so you might want to get in here. And like I said, you can do it all online. There's no waiting around for email. It's all automated. It's all database-driven. Get to practice my new craft. A lot of the other things that are on Monroe World, too, including like the Lynx Lagoon and many of the other sites, are going to be moving over to ASP-driven database pages, which is why a lot of pages are down right now. I am converting them to ASP from Perl. So that's why there's a lot of spots that are dead on Monroe World's children's sites. Let's jump over real quick and look at the emulation side of retro gaming. There's been a new version of Hive, which is supposed to be, and as far as I'm concerned, the fastest video game emulator out for the PC. And it contains a bunch of new games. I'm trying to think of what comes to mind. Scramble, Pooyan, I think, is on there. Time Pilot, a handful of other ones. There's a whole big collection of them, and you can get that at your favorite spot for emulators, be it Vintage Gaming or EmuViews or Retro Games. They've all got it. And download the latest ROMs. I recommend emuviews.com to grab your ROM needs. And that's what Larry Bank's been up to with Hive. I haven't actually gotten to look at the version myself. I've been really busy, but I've heard lots of good things. And knowing the previous versions of Hive, which feature that great game of favorite of mine, Zookeeper, which we all know is, if I could, I'd, probably sleep on a Zookeeper machine. My wife wouldn't like that very much, though. Anyway, also new in the emulation scene, apparently RetroCade is finally starting to almost come into its own in terms of the Windows version. The Windows version apparently is coming along very well, and we're hoping to have a beta to the private beta testing team soon, which means hopefully we'll have a release soon. Personally, I can't wait for a Windows version. I mean, not that I mind running it from a DOS prompt, but it seems to help out the beginners to be able to have a Windows version. They're a little more comfortable with that. So that would be a good thing. The mailing list has been fairly active with regards to that, and enabling some sort of cheat system, too. That's also gone through the mailing list. But probably most note this time around is what has come into MAME as of late. Probably the most popular that everybody's heard about are the two racing games that have caused the people the most grief, Pole Position and Turbo, which are both now emulated properly in MAME. Now, neither Turbo nor Pole Position were really my driving games. That's taken by Road Blasters or there was another racing game I really liked. Well, there was another one. The Road Blasters is probably my all-time favorite racing game in the arcade. So it didn't make any big deal to me that Turbo and Pole Position were emulated, but I know a lot of people have been waiting for it. Well, now your wait is over. It's there. There's some samples to download, so you'll want to grab those too. Now I want to talk about a little note of controversy. Now before we get into this is not a rant, although it may become one. You never know. That's up in the air. As much as I appreciate what the MAME team has done, and I know I've had a lot of flack given to me about my comments about the MAME team, this is sort of a controversy that I'd like to pose to you, the listener. For quite some time now, we've heard of MAME as the documentation project. MAME is the documentation project, the open source project, that tries to faithfully, more or less, recreate as accurately as possible video games from the past, preserving how they work because they're not always going to be around. So somehow they're trying to preserve the way they work and how they work and what hardware they use to preserve that in a documentation situation. Basically, what documentation situation really translates into is if it's not fast enough, too bad. And that's pretty much been the way it's been. And I don't think any of you old salty dogs that have been around the main boat long enough know that that's pretty much the way it is. And that is perfectly within the MAME devs team's prerogative. There's a lot of games like Narc and, heaven forbid, Mortal Kombat that a lot of people would like to see faster. But that's not the point of MAME. The point of MAME is to document and make the games run properly. Whether or not they run fast enough to play or not, that's a secondary. Now, something has entered into the MAME arena recently which challenges the directive of MAME. And that is the inclusion of the ever-popular, never have yet quite been emulated version of Pong. That's right, the 70s version of Bat and Ball, which a lot of people said would never be emulated because it really doesn't have anything to be emulated. There's no CPU, there's no support chips, there's no graphics chips. It was all designed with what they call discrete circuitry. Now, discrete circuitry can't really be emulated per se. It can only be simulated. Now, at this point in time, Pong has been added to MAME as a game, and those of you who have been around MAME long enough consider MAME an emulator. Well, now MAME has become a simulator. Does the fact that in order to play a game we have simulated, which really there isn't any other choice, we have simulated the game of Pong in order to preserve it. That doesn't quite work right. That'd be sort of like Nintendo writing Donkey Kong from the ground up again, even though the graphics are the same and the sounds are the same. They rewrote it from scratch just so that people would remember how to play it or how it played. It doesn't really fit in with the main charter, I guess is what I'm saying. And again, I think the Pong simulation is perfect. I think it's great, and I think it's really, really cool. Does it belong in MAME? Should it be a standalone simulator? To be listed on the Game & Watch simulator pages, to be listed on the V-Merlin simulator pages. Does it belong in an emulator? I would love to have your feedback on what you guys think about Pong being in MAME. And again, I don't want anyone thinking I'm dissing the MAME team on this one. I think they did a great job simulating Pong. But does a simulation belong inside of an emulator? That's the question. That's the controversy. For those of you who haven't seen Pong yet, it's the only game you can play with MAME that you do not have to download a set of ROMs for. It's built in inherently to MAME, and you can play it without downloading anything else, which is interesting because basically without breaking the law or exercising your archival backup rights, MAME is nothing more than a 7 meg file cleverly disguised as a 2 meg file that does absolutely nothing for the end user without having ROMs for it, of course, which, as we all know, is rather legally gray. As even if you own the board and the rights to run the games, it's still legally gray. So it's kind of nice to have an option where when you download that 2 meg file, at least you get to play Pong. So that's one way to think about it. Again, I'd love to hear your emails. I'd love to hear your back talk when the back talk area gets put back up. Tell me what you think. You know, flames not appreciated, but you know it wouldn't be the first time. Constructive comments. Talk amongst yourselves. You know, get on the game boards and see what other people have to say. I'm just flaming the fire a little bit for you. Okay, let's move along. I've chatted enough about that. I would like to make a plug for the Retro Gaming Radio CD-ROM. As many people have noticed, a lot of the archives in the Retro Radio archive areas are now offline. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. He took them offline to make us buy his CD. Well, that's partially right. In all actuality, we're now running the server off a much slower internet connection than we had before, which means we don't have a lot of extra bandwidth. I am keeping the last 7 episodes. I'm not archiving them the day after they come out. I'm keeping the last 7 episodes online for download at any given time and streaming, but the rest are available on the CD-ROM. The CD-ROM, the Retro Gaming Radio CD-ROM, is $9.95 delivered to you in the United States. If you're outside the United States, we'll still sell it to you, we'll still send it to you, but you got to hook us up a little bit more for some postage. We are looking actually at making a little truce with the CustomArcade folks, where not only would you be able to get an actual production copy of the Retro Gaming Radio CD-ROM by Burn, you'll also probably get a Retro Radio CD-ROM when you buy a CustomArcade controller. And we are in negotiations on trying to figure out how that's going to work. So, the Hot Rod may have the Capcom game ROMs, but maybe CustomArcade will have the Retro Gaming Radio CD-ROM. It could be cool. I'd like to take a moment also to direct you over to BucknerGarcia.com. They are selling a new album. The album is called Now and Then, and actually they're selling it through MP3.com. It's $6.99. Doesn't cost a lot. They've got 6 new tracks that you haven't heard, including a couple of interesting ones called Do the Funky Broadway, Pog Wild, and It's All Right, and E.T. I Love You. Now, that could be interesting, I guess. For those of you who ever played E.T. on the 2600, the word love doesn't come anywhere near your lips when playing E.T. for the 2600. And you darlings, you know what I'm talking about, those of you who played E.T. on the 2600. There's also, interestingly enough, there's a Pac-Man Fever Unplugged version, which I'm kind of dying to hear. They have a clip for it on MP3 that you can download. They also have karaoke versions of Pac-Man Fever and E.T. I Love You, and that could be actually kind of cool. So that's my plug for the good boys at Buckner and Garcia. You can jump over to bucknergarcia.com or over to mp3.com, and you can have a look at that and listen to some clips, the whole bit. So give them your support. Real quick, I'd like to promo that Dragon's Lair 2 for DVD is out from Digital Leisure, digitalleisure.com. You guys already know the address. They've got a lot of goodies on the CD. Again, there's an extras area, a bunch of other good stuff. Of course, the game is there in its entirety, as per the norm. I am going to do a full review episode probably next week on the show. I'm going to do an entire show for the Dragon's Lair 2 DVD. I will tell you an interesting story, since everyone seems to like to hear stories. I'm on their press release, which means pretty much anytime they release a product, it makes it over my way. This time I get this package from Digital Leisure, and it's really heavy. I mean, it's obviously about the size of the DVD, but it seems really heavy. I'm thinking, well, what else did they stick in here? And I opened it up, and inside the package was like Don Bluth stationery. I mean, it had Dragon's Lair and Dragon's Lair 2 characters on it. Space Ace was on there. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is really cool. I'm never going to use this stuff because it looks too cool. And I think I may put a screenshot up there for you guys to see in the window. You probably can't see it very well. But I thought that was exceptionally generous of them to send that along. And I thought it was really, really cool. And thank you very much. I just wanted to bring that out. Well, folks, we've been running this show forever, it seems like. We do have some back talk uploads to get to. We're not going to have time to get to them this show. But please keep checking back. The back talk area should be back open soon. Upload your audio comments through your web browser in either MP3 or WAV format, and we'll play them on the show. I know I've been saying this for like 5 shows now. For those of you who've uploaded, thank you. I'm going to get around to reviewing them, and things have just been so busy here. We will do the back talk portion of the program. I promise. Keep the comments coming. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Retro Gaming Radio. My name is Shane R. Monroe, and until next time,